Hi all. So today we're going to look at terrains, and we are in order to kind of create a more background controlled area, but it's up to you if you prefer this kind of scenario setup. I think this artificial environment, if you want the scenario, the studio environment type of an element, you can create it, which is totally fine. I'm just going to use another feature of Unity, which is a terrain modeler. So let's start with it. So basically what we are going to do is replace this plane with another plane, which is the terrain. You go to 3D object, terrain, and it will just generate a terrain by default. You can scale it, you can move it. It's just another object. So I'm going to do that. Actually, going to put the terrain in the middle, and in order to create this kind of scenario, so I'm going to create more or less like a valley or a kind of a bowl type of constrained element. So and that's what I'm going to try to generate here. So I'm going to delete the plane, delete plane, and align the terrain into the height. So it was around 1.8, I believe. So now that everything is touching the ground, yes, 1.85, let's say, just to be sure. And now the checkers that you see is about the patterns. Those are going to be, if you have downloaded the standards assets, they are part of it, and it will immediately be applied, and you'll see how. So at the moment, let's go and start modeling our terrain. So once you select the terrain here in the inspector, it will give you these 4 or 5 icons. It will start with create neighboring terrains. So this means if you want to enlarge them, you can enlarge those. Actually, to model is the paintbrush, and it will go in under the options drop-down menu, erase or lower terrain. So this will give you a series of brushes, like similar to Photoshop, that allows you to basically model or raise or lower the terrain. If you left click, you raise. If you press shift left click, you lower. So generally what's starting to give some form is the brush size, how big you want that brush to be, and obviously this depends on your model, and what's the opacity, meaning how crisp you wanted to make it raise. So if you wanted a higher steep level to raise, you click get it higher. So once you quest, you see starts creating these kind of hills if you press one click. So I'll start going with this again, just starting to formulating the more or less what I wanted to create, and so it starts obviously immediately modeling these kind of elements, this topography, and what I really enjoy is to create that kind of ball, as I said, to constrain that or hide in a way that horizon line, artificial horizon line. So in order not to have this very smooth kind of elements and kind of monotonous, what you have is other brushes which allow you different types of topography. So these ones are pretty similar with smaller spikes or bigger spikes, and these ones is when it starts getting random. So you start seeing here multiple hills type of an element, and this allows you to create some turbulence into the landscape itself. So it is good to break that smoothness element that you don't want to start to get it into. This is too high at the moment. I don't want to make it that. So this is fine. So it starts breaking those. There's a few more. Again, it's up to you how much you want you're trying to model it, and again, and how much do you need to actually spend on these areas and to constrain your environment. And basically that's what this will do. So I'm happy with this. It's pretty random. Again, there are different types of patterns. Again, it allows you to create elements that you know, so high peaks kind of a thing, and again, trying to minimize. I always tend to use the corners as elements. So and there's this one as well, which allows you to create little hills. So it could be also well applied here. And too much, perhaps, and undo. Again, it's up to whatever you need to be. And this one is one if you want to kind of have more sharp razor edge kind of topographies. So if you have hills and kind of cliffs, so that will allow you to sculpt a lot of those elements in. So that's, I'm pretty happy with this. It's okay for what element it is. So here we start having the terrain, and then now if we go into our area, you'll see immediately that you don't see the horizon line anymore. It starts to become very, very different. So so now that's that we are finishing this area. Actually, maybe I'll raise a bit more here in the foreground. Go to the terrain again. It's still a bit flat here, so I'm going to use a bit of this area and make it a bit more livelier. Too much. Yep. And basically it's just one way of starting growing three-dimensionality into your elements. So again, be sure that nothing is under the ground, and that's why I just basically went to the go. So the next step is going to be, if you select the terrain, is going to get rid of, instead of razor lower, the paint textures. So this is starting this again. You have the same brushes, but you'll start using the textures. So that's why you start playing with those. So in order to start playing with the textures, you need to put them in layers. So create layer, and in this case, I'm going to create a grassy knoll kind of area. So there's the cliffs, which is fine, but as a standard, I'll go with the grass. If you double click, then it becomes, the layer becomes applied. You can edit more layers, and that's what I'm doing. So now we have grassy knoll all around, but I'm going to get this kind of cliff type of rocky mountains. You know, you can add a layer to that if you want, or you can just create a new one, create another layer, and go with the cliff, grass rock. Yeah, it could be grass rock. Yeah, let's use the grass rock one. So this is the one. Double click on it, it will pop up. Select on that one. Select this. You know, that will be choose. Then obviously the grass rock is going to be closer. Again, you can choose whatever type of as you see, it starts to planting that kind of grass rock kind of element. So I'm just going to put it on the top of our mountains. It's, to give that kind of rocky aspect. And I'm not going to make it too dense in some of them because they are lower density. And yeah. So this is pretty much it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy. So we start, some parts are less perceptible than others, but it is there, as you can see. As you can see on the mountain, it's pretty rocky, and yeah, and the rest is going to become green. So yeah, so I'm pretty okay with this. And the last part is going to be on the terrain. If you select the terrain, you go on the trees, obviously. So it will just populate the trees, and basically the same thing. You need to go edit trees, add a tree, and you can select many of those. This will pop up, this window, and again you click on the circle and you select, again I'm going to select the broadleaf one, double click, and here you need to click add, don't forget, and when it's popped up you can start populating. It's the same thing. The elements, it's going to be how you want to populate those. If you want to make it plant mass trees, you just click 10,000 or keeping existing, and you can just go here on the terrains and select how much you want it to populate and how much is the brush size, as you can see. And then if you go to the tree, the same thing, is the brush size, the same element. So I'll start populating them here, and I want to make them less dense, so less trees, and actually a little bit more random. So you see, so that will allow you to kind of just maybe it's a bit too intense, but yeah, I'm going to make smaller numbers. 3 density, yeah, so kind of still too much. Don't want it to be that. So again, not towards the rocks because those will be tree levels, but it will allow you to create this kind of element. So yeah, so this is how I'm going to go here and immediately go and try to experience our model, but it seems this is how you are going to get terrains and how those things populate. Another thing is going to be the direction of the sun. In this case we don't see it because it's too late, so I'm going to actually go and see where the sun is coming up, and in order to align, so with, there we go, there it is, pretty high actually. So so this is how the trees are going to be populated. You see the direction of the shadows, so the same thing needs to be done in relation with our shadows. So if the sun is coming from that direction, let's go and see if our yeah, is correct, so it's fine. So this is basically how you're going to create the sun, and if you start play, you'll start hitting it, you can actually see and experience a far better type of an environment. Again, it depends on what type of a model. Perhaps you want a scenario, but as you can see, now everything is kind of well populated. The shadows are in the same direction, and you don't have that kind of scenario that you see the horizon line. All right, okay, so this is how we generate terrains. Thank you.